So, welcome back, everybody, to another Thriveabetes interview. And this week I am with Janie Lazar, who lives in Dublin. And Janie's diabetes diagnosis is quite recent and began with a misdiagnosis of type 2 diabetes in 2016, eventually being correctly diagnosed with LADA, which is Latent Autoimmune Diabetes in adults, or sometimes it's known as type 1.5 or 1.5, and that came about in 2019. But Janie's story is more than just diabetes. I mean, she's a twice survived cancer, once without diabetes, once living with diabetes. And she's also the founder of End of Life Ireland and lead organizer in the TEDxDunlaoghaire talks, which I think took place in 2019. Am I correct?
It takes place at the end of October, the October bank holiday. So we started that in 2018. So this is our fourth year.
Okay, it's
Yeah.
an annual event. Okay, so
Yeah.
that's brilliant. I'll keep an eye out for that. So, Janie, I'm going to hand over to you now to share your story. And before we get into your very long diagnosis story, because it comes in two parts and it's very complicated, can you just give us some background on you as well?
Okay, Gronia, thank you, and thank you for having me on here today. Yeah, my goodness. I came over to Ireland in 1993, usual thing, met an Irish man in London, lived there for 14 odd years, came back here, and I say back, it was my decision to come here. You know, the usual thing, a couple deciding where to go, where to live, quality of life, maybe we'll have a family, maybe not. Wanted to live by the sea, having been brought up by the sea in North Wales originally before moving to London. And I suppose my adult life began here in Ireland again. I now have spent more time here as an adult than I have
Yeah.
had in London. So I feel very much an Irish person.
Yeah.
I'm an Irish citizen. Great allegiance causes me great confusion when people say, or unrest when people say, "Where are you from?" Dublin.
Yes.
Where else?
Correct.
This
And
is
as
my
I
home.
tell as I tell people, we've got our claws into you now. You're not going back.
Yeah. So really, really, that's what brought me here. I've stayed here because I love it. I Goodness, I do a lot of different things. As you've said, I suppose I reached a stage of life where I do the work that I enjoy, which all revolves around coaching, speaker coaching, story weaving. I also come from a marketing background, so I'm able to look at things from a bigger picture point of view. Hence, establishing End of Life Ireland, my own business, Much More Than Words, and TEDxDunlaoghaire. And
Great.
there are
And
other things.
I'm going to actually link all those things in the description below the video so that people can find out more about all those different things that you do.
Okay,
So
fabulous. Thank you.
you're welcome. So let's talk about diabetes and as we all start the story, diagnosis. So can you talk us through the lead up? I mean, there wasn't really much of a lead up to your
No.
misdiagnosis.
No, there wasn't at all, and it's one of those things. I think everyone has, well, not everyone. Most people have siblings, and when your big siblings keep at you to investigate something, then eventually you give up and say, "Oh, okay." So what actually happened was I was getting palpitations, which I now realise was a symptom of diabetes. But being a jumpy type of person anyway, I just didn't think anything of it. And every now and then I go, oh. And one of my sisters just said, for goodness sake, go and get it checked out. And this went on and on and on. Cut a long story short, went into St. Michael's Hospital in Dunleary. They did a variety of heart tests, had to wear a monitor and overnight. And at the same time, they happened to do blood tests.
Mhm.
So this was around 2000, it was 2016. And a telephone call from the doctor. Yes, you have a slight an irregular heartbeat, but by the way, you're borderline diabetic, and we want your medication.
Okay.
As somebody who rarely takes a pill even for a headache. It was like, no, no medication. I can do this. I can do this. I don't know much about diabetes. I will learn how to manage this. So I suppose a period followed of I was going to be good with my diet, exercise, and it would go up and down, up and down. And still at that stage, I was learning and also very shocked, I suppose, to realize how little appreciation and understanding by the wider public of diabetes. You know, the associate the reaction is, oh, but you're not fat, or but your diet's normally good. You don't look
Yeah.
like somebody who'd have diabetes. So eventually, I suppose I got to grips with it that way. But as I say, I would often be put on what I call the naughty step. Oh, your levels are up again, or the HbA1C, not good. What are you doing wrong?
Uh,
Um, I would see the diabetes nurse and the dietitian in the dental practice, but also then be encouraged to take medication, to follow the American diabetes research, which really was down to medication. And
and
I just really didn't want to go there.
can I ask, like, what information about diet were you finding? I mean, were you searching online for more information about how to adjust your diet to make it work for diabetes, or was it solely from the dietitian? Like, what was the management, I suppose, around the diet? Because we know now that it's very much it's about all the carbs, not just the sugar. So I'm just wondering what was the advice or what was the information you were finding that was helpful or unhelpful?
Well, the other thing to throw in at the very beginning, the HSE do a course, um,
Yeah.
which is useful, but I think at the very beginning of a diagnosis, you don't really understand anything. And to understand all of this business about, how uh, sugars are processed through the body, the insulin, the key to unlock the cells. It's you just don't. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm stupid. I just didn't take it in, and I don't eat processed foods.
Mm-hmm.
So there are very few packets that I could look at the information on. I'm not fond of tech, so I wasn't keen on doing the carbs and calories trackers and entering in so many things. So I was really finding my own way. I would go online. I found a course in the States that I started, but that didn't really work, even though it's a brilliant program. But it's because of the time difference. Of course, I never made the sessions, and my
Right.
head wasn't in the right space. And I
Okay.
think the key thing is to have your head in the right place, to fully appreciate the seriousness of it. So my journey as a type 2 was up and down, up and down. I managed it without medication at times, back on the naughty step, back again. My weight never really fluctuated. I ate well. And the curious thing, Grania, is I never, ever had any symptoms other than what I now
Okay.
know was the palpitations. I was never thirsty. I was never running to the loo. Um, Nothing like that. As is the
Yeah.
story with other things that have happened in my life.
Yeah. I mean,
Until serious.
it's amazing to me that it was just picked up accidentally.
Yeah.
So talk us through then, because I mean, this went on for 3 years, this up, down, naughty step,
2016.
scolding.
Yeah, to the beginning, really, I think it was 2000, end of 2018, 19. I had planned a trip. I have family in New Zealand. So I'd planned to be away. And as every diabetic knows that, when you travel, you've got to make sure you've got plenty of this and plenty of that. Went away, had all, my testing strips with me and everything else, but still was carrying on. I was eating well, I was out exercising a lot, didn't think anything of it. Then when I came back, I was tested again for the usual 3 monthly, am I on the naughty step or not? And that was when I had a bit of a shock.
So let's backtrack a little bit because you told me that in our previous conversation that you had actually started on the medication just before you
Oh
went to
goodness,
New
yes.
Zealand. Yeah.
I'm
So
sorry, yes.
yeah, you'd finally gotten to the point where nothing was working and medication had to be like that was basically you were
That
so
was really
frustrated.
I wouldn't say it was an ultimatum, but it
Okay.
was, we want you on statins and we want you on medication. Statins straight away for me was and is a no-no. Um, the medication, I went away and reluctantly took the medication. It was
Mm-hmm.
interesting because when I was in New Zealand, I was there because my sister strangely was unwell with other issues, and it was one of the days I was in the doctor's with her, and I just said, I'm due to go back to Ireland. I'm going to obviously undergo tests again. Can I just ask you what the view here is? Because I've been asked to take medication, which I have been doing,
Yeah.
and the doctor's view there was there wouldn't be any noticeable change after 3 months anyway
With medication.
with
Yeah.
medication. It would be, if there were, would be nominal, but really it would have to, if there was going to be a change and if it was working for you, it would have to be done over a longer period of time. And at this
Okay.
stage, I don't know, having with diet and being really careful with exercise and your nutrition, I don't know. I would have a question mark myself over whether you're type 2.
Okay.
So that was interesting, just something coming out. And then came back to Ireland and checked in again, had blood tests done, and the went to the called into the doctor and told to go to A&E.
Okay, so that seems rather sudden to me. So what prompted him to say go to A&E? Was there what was in the test results?
The apparently my blood sugars were through the roof. I don't remember what I was told because I felt absolutely fine. I'd come back and I was still the same as ever. Um, I was quite shocked because I thought, well, you've told me to go to A&E, but I feel fine. If I'm sick enough to go to A&E, why am I just walking out of the surgery?
Mm,
It's only in retrospect the penny drops. So I came back, had a quick shower because I was going out that night, jumped on my bicycle, cycled down to A&E, and it was around 6 o'clock. I was seen straight away. They were very good in there. And within, goodness, 10, 15 minutes, they had me on insulin, potassium, fluids. And that was when the whole story really changed. Really
okay.
changed.
So it sounds like you were in DKA if you were on fluids and yeah.
Everything. Absolute. I mean, I was in A&E for most of the night, and then I think in the close to midnight got sent up to the HDU, the high dependency unit. Then eventually obviously crashed out. They were fantastic up there. Wonderful nurse. I'll always remember her, Maeve. Fell asleep, and then the next morning a wonderful doctor came round, Mari Buckley, and we had this just extraordinary conversation. I mean, her first question was, how do you feel now? And my answer really was, excuse the language, I feel like shit now. I felt absolutely fine when I came in last night. And then we started to have really part of a bigger conversation, and it was about what would happen next.
Okay.
Um, Yeah.
So at this point, we're going to pause the conversation for video one and take up the new diagnosis story, or the correct diagnosis story, in part two. So bear with
Thank
us,
you.
viewers.